Guys, welcome back to Better Odds Sports Betting. This is your host, Kyle Hunter. I'm joined today by a special guest at FarleyBets, Chris. He's been doing articles for the Odds Breakers. I know he started his own podcast here recently. Been doing a great job there with the NBA. I know he started doing MLB as well. Today, we're going to focus on the NBA in the playoffs. Get a little bit closer to the end than baseball, where we've got the really long grind, obviously. So we'll talk NBA today. Maybe we can do a baseball video at a later time. But Chris, how you doing today?
Doing fantastic, man. I know you probably don't want me to say stuff like this because you're a humble guy, but this is surreal for me because I've been listening. You've been reverberating on the speakers in my house and on my headphones since I can remember. First with Bang the Book, and now recently with ATS. I've been following you for a long time. So, man, to be able to be here with you is just crazy. 2021 has been pretty good to me so far. So I'm grateful for it, and I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
No, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I'm definitely a humble guy. It sounds weird for me to hear that, because I'm just little old me. But certainly I've had some great opportunities over the years. Adam Burke with ATS radio here recently. Great guy, great handicapper. Also doing Kiev's show, the Odds Breakers, just working together with some guys in the industry who are a lot of fun to work with, some sharp guys. It's nice to be able to do this video with you. I know we've chatted a little bit back and forth via Twitter and in the past, but first time we could go on video. Just if you could give a little bit of background to the people, how'd you get into this?
Sure. So, loved sports since I can remember as a small kid, grew up. I was born in Northern Jersey, Giants fan, big Giants family. Probably quickly became a bigger fan than my dad, even though he's a huge fan. But I just knew a little bit more about everything that was going on. So I just loved sports. And probably about close to 10 years ago, just started to listen to all the podcasts and, read articles and websites from people like you and Adam Burke, Brad Powers, all these guys, just kind of learning and honing the craft. And then last year decided to not just become a consumer of it, but a producer myself. I'm somebody who really liked school. Like I'm kind of a dork, and I miss going to school. So like just the constancy of learning all the time in sports, and all the different sports that are on. Gambling really sucked me in, and I guess probably a little bit of a thrill seeker too. Come from a military background, so just it makes every day different. It's exciting. I love sports, and to be able to figure out the human side of it too. I just think I like people. So just to think about all the different angles and motivation and everything that goes into handicapping, I really, really enjoy. It gives me a lot of fulfillment. So I last year started producing, but I've been in this game for a long time, and just fell in love.
Nice. And I know NBA is a major strength of yours. You've done great with the article. Do you have on hand what your record is in the article from the Odds Breakers? I know it's impressive.
Yeah, during the regular season, I believe is 307 and 152. That doesn't sound right. 207 and 152, maybe. It's 57.6%. So over 350
awesome.
picks. Yeah, and a 58% win rate. So, and that I welcome anybody to audit me at the Odds Breakers. I'm pretty sure that is the actual figure. But yeah, it's been a good year, and I love handicapping the NBA because I think the motivation angles, at least during the regular season, is a real thing that you can really play on in a lot of different situations. And the rest right before games can sometimes be really frustrating. But if you can figure out, I guess, which team's in a better spot and kind of write a narrative on every team and know what to expect. There's a lot of variance, but there's a lot of opportunity too. So NBA has been good to me, and I'm grateful for it. That's for sure.
No, that's a great record over a large sample size. Some of these people say I'm hitting 70%. They have 20 some games or something like that. We know that doesn't mean anything. So that's a pretty big sample size, guys. So pay attention. And thanks to Glenn for tuning in. Glenn Middleton, consistent listener and viewer. Also, CJ Tavano, I'm not sure if that's correct. CJ Tavano says Farley rocks. Yeah, he does. You're right about that.
Thanks, man.
And guys, let's go ahead and get into some of these games. I will say too. Glenn says just taking off the days till college hoops starts again. I have to, Chris. If somebody says something about college hoops, I have to say something about it because it's definitely a favorite of mine. I like the NBA. It's especially in playoff time, but college hoops, the real deal for me. I also love college football, which really isn't that far away. So, we got something to look forward to on that as well. But let's start getting into these games here. We're going to start in time order here. The Boston Celtics and the Brooklyn Nets, looking at the odds board here. 63% of the bets here on the Nets right now, 66% of the money. I see the Nets -9, total of 227. Chris, I'm going to let you start with your thoughts on this game, maybe kind of a recap of the first game and then what you think of this one specifically.
Sure. I would say from the first game, I was most impressed by the way that the Nets actually, they were able to play a little defense. Some of that is certainly on the Celtics and their inability to make shots. I think they shot, it was under 40%. I think it was around 37% maybe or something. The Celtics had a bad shooting day, but the Nets flexed a little bit, showed that they're capable of playing some defense. I think they only allowed 40 points in the second half, and they had like 56 or 57 points. In the first quarter, the game started off slow, but then all it took is the big three and some of their other supporting cast members to get going. And what the thing that scares me about this line is what we saw at the end of that game. The game was close, and then the Nets just kind of turned on the Jets, and they were able to cover. I think they won by 11 points in that one. I'll probably stay away from this line, but the total interests me a little bit. It's high at 227, and I know there's a little extra juice there at a lot of books. So I think that's still probably a little too high for a playoff game, especially if the Nets are actually going to play defense, and Celtics can play defense when they actually, exert themselves, when they're motivated. Although this is a tough team to play defense against for sure. One bet that I'm looking at, I lean to the over because of this other bet. One bet I'm looking at is a player prop on Jason Tatum. He had a terrible game in game one. I think he was 6 for 20 from the field. Some of that is the Nets defense limiting him. Some of that is probably playoff nerves. He's looking across the court, right? And he's seeing Harden and Kyrie and Durant. And he's really the one key cog on the other side now with Brown out. So, Kemba Walker, he's been too volatile all year for me. I'm not going to really trust him with anything, but I think Tatum's player prop sits at 30.5. It may go up to 31 at some point, but I like the over on that. That's also juiced, but I think they're going to have to force feed Tatum. I expect some positive regression from Tatum in this game. I expect him to have a much better game. He typically, after a bad game, he comes back and he looks a lot better. And we've seen him put up way more points than that in plenty of big games. So that's the first bet that stands out to me. Not going to be a huge play for me, but I'll probably sprinkle one or maybe like a unit and a half on that. And then I'm leaning towards the over just because I think he'll get more his. I see some positive regression for the Celtics offense. And then, the Nets, I think they could be more in rhythm for this game. Started off slow, finished hot, just like we saw in the Bucks game with that big finish. They kind of carried on to the next game. So I look for this game to be higher scoring than the first. Barely crossed over 200 points. If it did at all, I forget the exact score, but then I like the Tatum prop even more.
Okay, that's fair. So I will say, as I look at this game, I'm a totals guy. Totals are my favorite. I looked at the pace in the first game. I was pretty interested by that. 93 possessions, very slow compared to what you would usually see in a Nets game. So I didn't really watch that game that much. Do you think that was the Celtics slowing the game down? Were the Celtics intentionally trying to make this a half-court game?
Yeah, God, it's so tough to know why. I guess playoff nerves have to play into that a little bit. The Nets also aren't used to the crowds they're seeing now. That's going to add pressure to the environment too. But yeah, you're right. The Nets are. I think they've been either second or third place all year in tempo. Of course, the Wizards number one. Almost always. But yeah, that was a drastic change. And Celtics aren't a fast-paced team, so maybe they commanded a little more of the tempo in the beginning. And then really just the low scoring in the second half amounted to the under,
Yeah, and as you alluded to, too, especially Kevin Durant started out really slow there in game one. Did shoot a lot better there at the end of the game. I think he was 1 for 9 or something like that at the beginning of the game, 2 for 10. Started shooting it better late. Kemba Walker missed a lot of that game too, and foul trouble. Kemba Walker is a key component to Boston at this point. Without Jaylen Brown, Tatum, like you said, is the main guy, but Kemba Walker needs to be the second guy, I think. He didn't really have anything until he hit a couple threes right at the very end of the game. I know it made people sweat that had the Nets. In the last minute, I think he made 2 threes to get up to like 13 points or 15 points or something like that. But Walker had 3 fouls early in the second quarter. So we'll see if he can stay out of foul trouble. I will say if I had to bet the side on this one, I think I would probably lay the points with the Nets here. I'm not betting this game, so don't think that this is me saying here's some lock or something. I assume Chris agrees with me. There's no such thing as a lock in sports betting. The people who say stuff like that are the ones that you shouldn't be listening to. So I don't like that term, because we know that in the long run, look, if you're hitting 55% in this over a large sample size, you're really good. You're one of the few. So you're trying to get small edges and win those over time. I would lay the points here with the Nets if I had to do something. I don't want to bet this total. I'm scared because I know the Nets can be so good on offense. The Celtics defensively during the year were not very good. I think Brad Stevens' team should be a little bit more capable on defense than what they were during the regular season. One pause that I have to laying the points with the Nets is I still think Stevens is a good coach. He's one of the best coaches in the NBA. Are the Nets motivated to smash them in a game like this? I think this is a good game to probably not bet too much on. I kind of agree with your Tatum prop there. So we'll go with that as what the show's play for this game is the Tatum player prop for this one. Let's go on to the next game, Chris. Let's talk the Los Angeles Lakers and the Phoenix Suns. The Lakers, 66% of the bets on the Lakers at -1.5 or -2 at this point. The price has gone up from 1 to 2 at most books. And 62% of the money on the Lakers as well. Interesting to see 62% of the bets on the over and 80% of the money on the under. So some sharp money certainly liking the under in this one. I will say I would lean to the under in this one as well. My concern is this total has been adjusted down a few points from the first game. So, it's not gone unnoticed that the first game was played at a slow pace and was low scoring. So what are your thoughts here, Lakers and Suns tonight?
I also lean to the to the under. I think there's better value there. I don't know if I'm going to play that though. I think my strongest play here is going to be on the Lakers. Maybe much to your chagrin there, Kyle. Nobody is a fan of these flops that LeBron is doing. So hopefully that ends. But what a game in the first contest. Even though there was some real distance between the two teams at certain points. The Knicks or the Lakers are always hanging in there. Never quite went away. God, they had opportunities to bring that to a 5 or 6 point game at certain points and just didn't do it. But I do think I heard a really interesting stat on Colin Cowherd's The Herd, which I wouldn't go to him for sports betting information. However, this is an interesting stat that the NBA average for the teams who lose game one to win the series is like 20%. For LeBron, after losing game one, it's over 60%. So, LeBron has been here before. I know he can be annoying, but they're really unparalleled as far as leadership goes. The interesting thing is, the Suns are a really good team at home. I think they lead the NBA ATS at home, hitting I got the stats here somewhere. They're hitting 60, 65 or 66%. Lakers have not been a great ATS team all year, but this is a really low line at 1.5, depending on where you look. I'll probably just go straight up with a money line play on the Lakers. So many of these games can be so close. So I don't 1.5. I could see this game easily, ending in a 1-point win. It's getting juiced up a little bit more now. I see it at some books like -135, -140 even. I got it from 125. I think that's a good value play just because I trust that the Lakers with their bigs didn't really act as big as they should have in the first run. Ayton is a great center, but he's young. I think he's like 23 or 24 years old. The Lakers just have so much more experience in their coaching from the players on the court. And I expect a much bigger game from Anthony Davis, who was horrendous in game one. Kind of just like Kemba Walker, even though Tatum's the best player on the floor, the Celtics are probably going to win or lose based more on how well Kemba Walker plays, right? Because he's that good number 2 guy. Anthony Davis needs to play better. When Anthony Davis is motivated, he does play better. I think, LeBron's probably, hopefully getting into him a little bit after that game. That was a bad game. So I like his prop of points, assists, and rebounds over 35. I think that's pretty low for a motivated Anthony Davis. Even if he only scores 20 points, I can see him, getting over 10 rebounds and coming, easily going over that prop. So those are the 2 strongest plays I'm looking at now. Is just the Lakers straight up, because I expect Anthony Davis to have a better game and I expect them to play bigger below the rim. Suns are a great team, though. I love the Suns. And I know we're going to talk more about series prices later, but if the Lakers go down 0-2 in this, then I would start looking at value plays for the series on the Lakers. The Suns could certainly win this game, and they're great at home, and they're a very complete team. And Chris Paul has that veteran leadership. Overall, though, they're young and they're small, and I think that's going to catch up to them eventually.
Yeah, I agree with most of what you said there. I'm not a LeBron hater or a Lakers hater necessarily, but I don't like seeing the same team win over and over again. I like to root for the underdog. And LeBron's thing about, when Draymond fouled him and he might have needed an eye patch to come back out, that one kind of rubbed me the wrong way, So I'm looking to see one of these teams hopefully knock off the Lakers. I will say, having said this, many people are too quick to dismiss the Lakers after one loss. We saw what they did last year, and that's like what you were pointing out there. I think the Lakers should still be favored in this series, so we'll talk about that a little bit more. But, until I see the Lakers lose, I'm going to assume that they're the favorite in a series because they still have 2 of the top 5 players in the NBA on their team. And we'll see how healthy LeBron is. I think that's really a big key, too. Is he close to 100%? If he's dinged up, it does give somebody else a chance. I agree with you that Davis was really poor in the first game, and Ayton is a good center, but he's not as good as he looked in that first game. And I think Davis has got to be pretty upset about how good Ayton looked, especially on the boards in that game. The Suns had tons of offensive rebounds in that game, lots of second chance points. I don't think they'll get that again. If I had to bet the total, I'd bet the under in this one. Like I said, it has been adjusted down. The Lakers' defense is better than most people think it is. The Suns are happy with playing at a fairly slow pace. So I think this will be played at a slow pace. The first game was 92 and a half possessions. So this was played at a very slow pace, the second slowest pace of any of the games in game 1 in the NBA playoffs. So only the Mavericks and Clippers was played at a slower pace than this one. I think that pace is probably about what it will be going forward. So then you got to try to figure out what kind of efficiency will these teams have. I lean to the under in this one. I don't want to bet the Lakers like Chris has in this one. Like I said, I am rooting for the Suns, but I do think you're probably on the right side if I had to bet something here. I think that the line, though, has moved in the way that, the sharp money is taking the Lakers. I would assume, the public likes the Lakers as well. I can't blame them. What were the Suns in the first game? Weren't they like -2.5 or -3? So we've seen a big adjustment, right? Yeah, this is a significant line adjustment where the odds makers are saying the Lakers need to win this game. Obviously they could win without winning this game, but it puts you in a tough spot to be down 0-2. So, it's becoming more of a important game for them. And game 1s have been an issue in the past. Usually game 2, they've played pretty well. So I can see where you're coming from on that one. I also like the Anthony Davis prop quite a bit. So let's talk about the Mavericks and the Clippers. The Clippers laying 7 points here, total of 216. 51% of the bets on the Clippers, so just about split even. 73% of the money on the Clippers. I think it's interesting from my standpoint. I did watch a lot of that first game, the Mavericks and the Clippers. I had the under in that game. I have to tell you, when Kawhi Leonard put up that shot with like 2 seconds left for 3, I could have lost the under if that went in. They kept getting second chance, fouling down 8. I was thinking, this is so unnecessary. Obviously, he did miss, and I ended up cashing that. First game was played to 87.5 possessions. Extremely slow tempo. We see a total here of 216. I'm going to let you go here on what you're thinking with both the side and the total for this game.
Yeah, neither of these teams play at a fast pace. They're perfectly fine just playing calculated, methodical basketball. The thing that jumps out most of all about that first game, Clippers were 27.5% from beyond the arc. Just not a good shooting performance overall from their team. That is well below their mark on the season. They're the best team in the league when it comes to three-point shooting, shooting at over 41%. I do expect some positive regression in that sense tonight, which makes me look a little bit to the over, because I do think that Luka will still get his. He's shown the resiliency. He's shown the ability to kind of create points. He can go down low. He can shoot from the outside. He's not a great outside shooter, but he's getting better. He was he was decent from the free throw line. So I still think Luka will get his. I don't think he'll be that limited. I mean, the Clippers are great on defense. They're top 5 in a lot of categories on offense and defense. This is a very complete team, and I was very bullish on the Clippers entering the postseason, because as far as just a deep team, a complete team goes, good on both sides of the ball. They're really, I mean, on paper, they should be getting to the finals. I mean, this is an unbelievable unit. That being said, here comes the issue with not playing so many of your stars throughout the year. I think Kawhi sat out like 20 games, Paul George like 18. I mean, don't quote me on those stats, but it's like somewhere around there. So as an entire unit, they don't play very often together. And maybe we saw some of that lack of chemistry, or just lack of going through resiliency together. And the challenges. It kind of comes out come playoff time. I also don't know. I know this is a lot of like intangible talk, but I look at these things, especially in the playoffs. Like, who's their leader? I really don't know. Paul George and Kawhi are not very vocal. Like when the Kawhi was in Toronto, I would say that probably Kyle Lowry was more so the leader of that team. Being there forever and everything. So Kawhi was just kind of the superstar. But I don't know who kind of pulls the team together, when the going gets tough, and that's crucial. I mean, we know who does that for the Suns is Chris Paul. We know that it's going to be LeBron for the Lakers. Every team kind of needs their Brady, especially in the playoffs. And I don't know who that is for the Clippers. I don't know how much chemistry they feel when they're out there on the court. This line at 6.5 is a little too high for me. On paper, the Clippers should be covering that line all day. But the way that they showed up in that first game, this is a huge game for them. This is a Clippers organization that puts a ton of money, into their front office, into their players. They want to win badly. So there's a lot of pressure on these players. So I think the Clippers will win, but I can't take the line. I'm leaning towards the over. What is it, 216, 217?
Yeah, 216.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the over just because there has to be some positive regression for the offensive stars on the Clippers in this game. But if they keep on playing at that pace, and it could definitely still fall well under. So just a lean for now, and I'm going to look a little deeper at it when I do my write up at the odds breakers. But this is a tough game to handicap.
Yeah, I will say that my premium play for tonight is in this game, so I'm not going to go as in-depth into this one as I have some of the others. You can check it out at huntersportspicks.com. Shameless plug there for my premium play. I have won 4 straight, had a little bit of a bad run there for a while. I've won 4 straight the last 4, so we'll try to make it 5 straight. And I will just say, to follow up on what you said, the question is about the Clippers. At one point, do we get pretty concerned about this team? On paper, they should be winning this series, definitely, like you said. And then you wonder, playoff P, he shows up, like he has in recent years. I don't have anything against Paul George, but, if you're going to call yourself playoff P, you open yourself up to a lot of negative if you play as poorly as you have. Kawhi Leonard is the best player on the team, but like you said, he's not that vocal. He had a Kyle Lowry with him there in the past. And then with the Spurs, he obviously had plenty of leaders. So who is that leader on this team? I think they kind of hope that Rajon Rondo could help there, but Rondo is not what he used to be. He's not going to play that the huge minutes. So they wanted to bring in Rondo and think that maybe that would help. I think Rondo is a nice addition to the team. And in general, like you said, on paper, I would think that the Clippers are a good play here, and they should run away with some of these games. They still might. My concern with the Clippers is, we've seen enough over the last couple of years that they have not been very good in these key moments in the playoffs. I don't know if I want to trust them. The game's not played on paper. And, I don't know. I can't lay 7 points in a game like this. I'll say that. But, I think this is a fascinating game, and one that I'll want to tune into tonight. I think this is probably my favorite game from a fan standpoint as well. So that's the three games for tonight, Chris. Let's talk briefly here. We can go a little bit more rapid fire on the series prices. I'm going to start here. Series prices, I've got Bookmaker and DraftKings odds. Let's just start where we were right there, the Clippers and the Mavericks. Clippers Mavericks, we see minus 170 for the Clippers, plus 148 for the Mavericks on Bookmaker. If you like the Clippers, minus 155 on DraftKings. So you definitely want to shop around. We talk about this a lot. Minus 155 and minus 170 is a significant difference. It's going to make a big difference in your bottom line in the long term. So definitely make sure you have multiple outs. Chris, I mean, at that price, what do you think about Clippers Mavericks for the series?
Yeah, I'm going to stay away from it probably just because of the volatility of what I saw from the Clippers even all year. But of course, I would lean probably towards the Clippers. I think I would really look at this as far as a value play if they go down 0-2. I know they'd have to go to Dallas, but again, this is a team that should beat the Mavericks absolutely, the best of seven. So for both the Lakers and the Clippers, I'd be more interested in a value play on them, a little sprinkle if they go down 0-2.
I think that's fair. I'm not going to bet this series price at this point. I'm curious to see if they do lose a game like this, which they probably won't lose. They're favored by 7 points. But if they do lose a game like this, I wonder what kind of price we'd get. They'd certainly be an underdog. How big of an underdog would they be? I'm not exactly sure because the odds makers clearly think of them as the better team, and they should be. So it'd be interesting to see what we get. Now, the next series, I think we can just cover this one really quickly. It's the Celtics and the Nets. I mean, I can't imagine that you're going to come at me saying that you love the Celtics here. At the same time, who wants to lay minus 3,000? I'm not going to. So, minus 3,000, the Celtics plus 1,200, something like that. So, probably nothing here, right?
Don't trust the Celtics at all. Nope.
Right. Yeah. Let's just move through that one. We'll save a little time on this one. So this one's a lot more interesting. Suns and Lakers. We see the odds at Bookmaker. The Suns are minus 115. The Lakers are minus 105. At DraftKings, the Lakers are minus 117 and the Suns are minus 106. So a little bit different there as far as, around the break-even point. The Lakers favored on one book, the Suns favored on the other. I assume we kind of think the same thing for this one based on what you said. If I was betting a series here, I'd have to bet the Lakers. What about you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not, I won't be long-winded with this, but this feels very like Brady. It's like, when do we start to fade Brady ever? Well, you just don't, I guess. And it's like, are we at the point where we're ever going to fade LeBron? I mean, this has been a different season for the Lakers. LeBron was out, Anthony Davis was out. LeBron did not get as much rest before the season started. He did not like that. So this could be a year to fade the Lakers. I guess I just keep on going back and forth in my head. Are we devaluing the Lakers a little too much, or are we valuing them a little too much? The only way that I'll look at actually playing them is if they go down 0-2 for a very light sprinkle, so like under 1 unit. But I probably won't play them, if it just keeps on going back and forth like this. I don't know if I see the value in that.
That's fair. CJ, I put up the Roll Tide just very briefly, but as a Buckeyes fan, I can't do that for long, so we got to hide that one again here pretty quick. Respect, though, to Bama. What a program. They got a tremendous program. This next series is an interesting one to me, too. The Hawks and the Knicks, Chris. We've got the Hawks are favored, obviously, minus 275 at Bookmaker, minus 250 at DraftKings. If you like the Knicks, you want to take it on Bookmaker, plus 226 or plus 200 on DraftKings. That was a really interesting first game. I think you might have had the under. I know I had the under in that game, the Hawks and the Knicks, and a lot of times I don't watch these games with all my family and get into it. But I was getting into the end of this game, and my wife was watching with me, and I was getting pretty tense at the end of that game, thinking I'm about to lose an under that looked like a stone cold under the whole game because it's going to go into overtime. Thankfully, Trae Young, really nice take to the basket instead of settling for a three or taking a bad shot there at the end of the game. But a nice win there for the Hawks, and I have to say the playoff atmosphere at MSG, really fun. I think that's my favorite game that I've watched so far as the atmosphere, because Madison Square Garden is awesome. It's tremendous. And to see the Knicks in the playoffs again is pretty cool. So, what are your thoughts here on this series?
Yeah, I happened to be in New York City just for one night when that game was going on,
Nice.
just to visit friends. I'm getting married in 2.5 weeks, so we got a lot to do before that.
Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, but it was the energy. I think this was the first weekend that New York City was more open, and the energy was just awesome. Just like out of the restaurants and bars. So I second that. I would have to look the Knicks way here. Probably just like a one unit play, but the Knicks are one of these teams where, I mean, obviously Julius Randle stands out, but on any given day, one of the random players can be the high scorer. They play really well as a unit, and you can tell there's a real care on that team for each other. But the Hawks are not to be underrated. They're one of the quietest teams to enter the playoffs. And they're kind of the mid-tier team in a lot of ways, but they are well coached, plenty of offensive skill players, and they can lock down on defense too. I'll probably keep on looking at unders in this series. No play on me for the actual series because I think it's going to be a 7-game series. It's kind of like a dart throw. I mean, I don't know who's going to win it, and I don't really have like a bullish stance on it. But if I had to look anyway, I would look the Knicks, and I might make a small play on them.
Yeah, this is one that I'd rather pass on. I think that the Hawks deserve to be favored. I wouldn't want to lay that kind of price with them. The only way I could take it would be the Knicks, but I don't have a ton of faith in the Knicks being able to get too far into the playoffs. I think the Hawks, the coaching change really helped them a lot. McMillan is doing a good job with that team. Capella is a nice fit. I think this Hawks team too. Also, really good 3-point shooters. They have some multiple very good shooters on the outside. Pretty fun team to watch as well. So I'm looking forward to this series also. Now we've got the 76ers and Wizards. 76ers minus 1,800 on Bookmaker, minus 2,000 on DraftKings. Can you make a case for the Wizards here or not?
I cannot. It'd be fun. They're kind of a local team for me. I live in Baltimore, so there's a lot of Wizards fans that I work with, et cetera. But they're a fun team to watch just because of how wild they play and fast they play. But unfortunately, a lot of it depends on Russell Westbrook actually, stepping up and being a really complete player. He's I think he's top 5 athlete ever in the NBA, but he's not a top 5 player in the NBA. It's too much on Beal, who's not 100%. Sixers are an extremely complete team. So I can't obviously lay the number on the Sixers at that line, and I'm not going to waste any money on the Wizards.
Yeah, we'll pass over this one pretty easily. We'll go to the Jazz and the Grizzlies next. So Donovan Mitchell, surprise scratch there for that first game. Did get to see quite a bit of that first game. I thought it was interesting that the Grizzlies took such a big lead, almost gave it away at the end of the game. Ja Morant's a fun player to watch. I'll say that. He's a lot of fun to watch. The Grizzlies, a really young team, but a talented team, certainly. What are your thoughts here? You still see the Jazz as the team as very likely to win this when I see the price at minus 355 on Bookmaker, minus 345 on DraftKings. So similar prices here.
Yeah, I'm seeing the plus 290 on Bovada. I mean, I think the books are going to want us to play on the Grizzlies, and that's the wrong play. I think that even if the Grizzlies went up 3-0, I would expect for the Jazz to win this series. And I mean, maybe at that point I would play on them depending what that line was. The Jazz are such a good team at home. I mean, even ATS, they're one of the best ATS covering teams at home. So to see them lose game 1 like that was something else. Ja Morant, I think, he's got the mentality to be a big star player in the playoffs. I don't think he panics, and he's very fun to watch, as you said. So, going to be interesting if we get Donovan Mitchell back. That's going to be a huge difference for the Jazz. But no play here for me because I think, the books are daring us to take the Grizzlies here, but I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if the Grizzlies take a lead of 2-0, or even if they get up 2-1 in this one, I'd like to look at the Jazz here because I would think the Jazz will win out. They have depth. If Mitchell's playing, they have multiple good scoring options. Also a really good defensive team, obviously. Gobert, tremendous. They have good big guys. I think it'll be hard for the Grizzlies to win this series. The Jazz have really not had a lot of playoff success either, so I don't know how deep they'll go in the playoffs, and I don't know that they should be a big favorite or anything, but I think the Jazz are a solid team. It'd be hard for the Grizzlies to win a season like this. So the Bucks and the Heat, Bucks minus 1,000, Heat plus 664 on Bookmaker. Quick thoughts here?
This is very attractive to me because I love the Heat and I love the way that they play basketball. I know I kind of thought that they were going to get blown out last night, but I think it's worth a small play in the Heat to win the series. When this series goes back to Miami, they could easily win 2 games, and I expect them to win at least one. Hopefully, they win two if you put a play on this. But I'm going to put a small play in the Heat. I think it's valuable. I mean, they have in a sense a deeper playoff experience than the Bucks, making it to the finals last year. So I think the Heat are not a team to count out, and this is that's a big line that the books are putting on the Heat to expecting them to lose.
Yeah, I see it was plus 664 on Bookmaker, and it's plus 750 on DraftKings. I don't know, do you have Bovada there on hand?
Yeah, plus
Um,
700 at Bovada.
Yeah, so plus 700, plus 750. We agree on this one. I would take a little piece of the Heat here in this one, not necessarily because I think that they will win the series, but because I think that they make this a tighter series or have a chance here. And if they do get back to 2-2 or something like that, you could even buy back on the other side. You'll have a win no matter what. You have the arbitrage there. So I think that is a good look to at least put a little bit of money on this one. The last one, the Nuggets and the Blazers minus 180. The Nuggets plus 155. Much different odds at DraftKings, minus 162 on the Blazers and plus 130 on the Nuggets. So the Blazers are clearly favored here, but varying degrees of a favorite role. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, plus 155 on the Nuggets, on Bovada minus 175 on the Blazers. I like this play too on the Nuggets. It's not, I would like it if it was a little higher. Get a little more money, bang for your buck, but that's already good, plus money on the Nuggets. I mean, I think the Nuggets are the better team. I mean, they're missing Jamal Murray, but the Blazers are too shot dependent. The Nuggets are able to create offense in a lot of different ways. They got much more aggressive in that second game. I know I put a tweet out about that. They only went to the free throw line for 8 attempts in that first game, 30 attempts in the second game, and they had like 54 points in the paint in the second game as well. So just a much more aggressive attack mode for the Nuggets from the beginning. I thought that might slow down the game if they controlled the game. It actually kept the game going just as fast as the first one. So another over in that. But anyway, I think the Nuggets are worth a look here because I do expect them to win this series, and it's plus money. And then you could always again buy back on the Blazers if they go up 2-1, and then you got value in both directions.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't have any strong opinion here on the series price. I will say the shooting in this series has been tremendous. Both teams really shooting the ball very well. 1.24 points per possession for both teams averaged in the first 2 games. That's better than anybody in the regular season by a lot as far as averages. So the total is going to get so high that I might have to take an under here at some point. I don't want to because, we see Lillard splashing those threes, and the Blazers are not a very good defensive team. So we got to get a pretty high number, but I don't want to keep thinking that it's going to go to 240 every game. So real quick here, I'm going to put you on the spot. Any one team that you kind of like the futures value to win it all here at this point?
The Sixers had good value to start off the postseason. I forget what the actual number was. I think it was plus 350 or something, or plus. That's I can't reproduce what that line was right now. But I think the Sixers, if they get to the finals, momentum, they got past the toughest teams in the East, could be worth a look. Depending on what that line is, but the season for putting down finals prices is kind of over for me. Mid-year to put it on the 76ers when Embiid was down would have been ideal. But, they kept that number 1 seed, so the value is not as great now. And I know for a lot of us, it might not be a popular look, but the Lakers, if they're in a tough spot at any point and their value goes way up, I think that's worth a look too. If the Lakers get to the finals, they have as good of a chance as anyone to win it. So, once that the value on that as well goes up, I'd be looking at it. But right now, I wouldn't be looking at anything.
Okay, so the Nets are plus 200 favorite at Bet Online. The Lakers are plus 400 there at Bet Online. I think those are fair prices. I think if the Lakers and Nets met in the finals, I think the Lakers would have a good chance. The Nets haven't proven they can win as a group. They haven't played together that much even this season because of injuries. But, the Lakers do have a tough run to have to get to the finals. So we'll see where that goes. But, Chris, this was a lot of fun, man. Thanks for coming on here with me today. Hope we can do something like this again, maybe here in the NBA playoffs a little bit farther in, or maybe at least MLB time or something. But I appreciate you coming on with me. Give a quick plug to your works here so that everybody knows where they can find everything of yours.
Sure, man. I appreciate it. You can if you type in FarleyBets on Instagram or Twitter, you'll find me. The actual tag on Twitter is Chris R. Farley 1, but at FarleyBets works. I write articles pretty much every day at the Odds Breakers on NBA and MLB until those seasons end. Cannot wait for football to talk about that. But I just started my own podcast, Laying the Points with FarleyBets, where I try to keep them short, 30 to 45 minutes, but where we go over what's been happening and some projected bets. So again, Kyle, man, anytime, any place, man, I would love to keep talking at any point with you. And thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. A lot of fun. You can tell Chris knows his NBA here. This was a fun show to do. Check out my work at huntersportspicks.com. Free picks newsletter if you don't want to sign up for premium packages. You can contact me at Kyle Hunter Picks on Twitter. If you have any questions, or you can follow along as I give some free information there. Also, check out the Odds Breakers, Chris's articles. I know Nick Hubb's writing some articles there now as well. Kiev has a lot of good thoughts. Check out theoddsbreakers.com and listen to their podcasts as well. So thanks for tuning in to Better Odds Sports Betting, and we will see you next time, everybody.